Hello and welcome to Unit 2, the job package. There are 4 main deliverables for this unit, and that is a lot. That's why we spend 3 weeks in it, and the due dates are actually staggered so that everything's not kind of building up toward the end. You're turning part of the assignment in at the end of week 2, and then the rest of it at the end of week 3. So those 4 main deliverables are the cover letter and resume. And these are going to be targeted to a specific job ad, which just basically means that you're going to incorporate key phrases from the job ad itself into your documents so that it just kind of makes sense and aligns when it's read. It feels right to the hiring manager or recruiter who's reading it. Um, and B, it also helps with the ATS software. So if your resume is getting processed and your cover letter getting processed through any type of ATS software, it's going to pick up on those keywords and it's going to hopefully rank your resume high so that it gets reviewed. We also definitely want to stay professional. I know that there's maybe you guys aren't aware, but there's kind of a little bit of a push toward maybe going with a more casual approach in a document like a cover letter. But we're going to kind of keep it a little bit more sophisticated / traditional. And I'll kind of share on the discussion board a couple of examples of what I mean. Obviously, these types of documents, they have to be perfect. Generally speaking, in class, I'm not going to take off points if you missed a period or a comma or something like that. But on these documents, because they will be judged heavily in that regard in the real world, there is a heavier penalty for grammatical types of mistakes. And the appropriate length, which for your resume is going to be 1 page. There are exceptions to that. I don't usually encounter them in students. It's usually people who have an established career history of 25 years in one industry. They might have a legitimate reason to have a multiple page resume, but most of us, generally speaking, myself included, 1 page is enough. And for the cover letter, it's about 3/4 of a page. The second part of the assignment is creating a LinkedIn profile and an elevator pitch. And for these, both in your LinkedIn picture and in your pitch, you're going to want to have a very professional appearance. We'll go over what that means. Make sure that your message is well written on LinkedIn, and when you're speaking in your elevator pitch, it should be polished and it should sound really professional and like you knew exactly what you wanted to say. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. And you want to contribute to your professional brand in a meaning way. And all a professional brand is the image that you're putting out there of yourself, essentially on social media and via email, text, any way that you're communicating with potential employers or recruiters. This set of assignments really creates your professional brand, and you should be thinking about how you want to be perceived as a package by employers as you're creating all 4 of these items. Okay, so let's go over some tips for the resume. These are do's and don'ts that I frequently encounter, and I think there's some common misconceptions that they help dispel. So best practices for resumes. First of all, keep it on 1 page. We talked about that. Leave some white space, and I know that makes it hard for some of you who maybe have a longer job history. I'm saying cram it all on 1 page, but give it space. So you do need to experiment with formatting based on your particular job history and what needs to be highlighted and how it needs to be presented. It really does vary a lot in terms of the best formatting, depending on exactly what you're working with. So look at lots of examples online. Don't just download the first template that you find on Word. See what's out there and see what suits you the best. You should not write an objective statement up at the top, something that says like, what you're seeking, basically. Like, I'm seeking a full-time position where I can utilize my skills and education to help the company grow. Like, no, that's a very dated approach. It persists a lot. I see it I see it all the time. But really those have evolved and they've become more so like a descriptive summary at the top of what your strengths are. So it could be more like, experienced copywriter with 10 years history working across different industries in medicine, finance, and law. I don't know. That wasn't a great example, but basically it's a quick pitch. It's just a couple of sentences that are going to highlight who you are and what you're pitching yourself as. Um, that again replaces any type of like objective statement that you would find at the top of the resume. Use really short, concise one-line bullet points that include action verbs, usually at the front. With the mistake that I see a lot here is people dressing up their bullet points, almost like a thesaurus was consulted and there's all this fancy wording, this extra wording, way too many descriptive like adjectives. Um, one of the main goals for your resume is that it's very easy to quickly skim it and get a good understanding of what you've done. If you're using elaborate sentences or like your word choices are too big and just too fancy, that's going to be really hard to do and your resume is going to get skipped. So the simpler, the better. At the same time, of course, you want to be highly detailed. So it's a blend of including the right details that are important, as well as being very concise. Oh, as far as action verbs go, you want to avoid repeating words over and over. So if you have a lot of similar roles or similar bullets, just Google like action verbs for resumes, and there's a ton of really great sites with lists of like hundreds of verbs, and it's really, really helpful. So number 5 there was organize content in your favor. What I mean by that is even though the standard is to organize your work history chronologically, starting with the most recent job and then working back into your past. For some people, it makes more sense to group types of employment. For instance, on my resume, I have a copywriting section, I have a teaching section, and then I have like a corporate America section. So rather than presenting, and within those sections, things are presented chronologically. And then depending on what I might be setting my resume for, I organize those sections in the way that highlights what I want highlighted. So all of that to say that you can take a look at what your specific background is and the content that you need to get on the page, and then you can organize it in the way that makes the most sense. The last one here, include LinkedIn anchor text link with that, or a hyperlink. I mean, a hyperlink is fine. Up at the top of your resume where you have your contact info, like your name and your email, you're also going to have the words LinkedIn profile, and those should be a hyperlink that goes directly to your profile. Oh, I guess I had one more proof. Just make sure with these documents that you put in extra time with intention proofreading for mistakes. Okay, so some good practices. I'll go through these quickly. It includes your email address, phone number, and your city state at the top. You don't need your full street address. Use bolding to help readers navigate. That means you're going to like bold headings. And even if you have important words in the bullet points that are really key, like to a specific industry, you can bold those. Cut extra and obvious information. For instance, we don't need to label email to precede your email address or phone to precede your phone number. Use a readable font. So you can be creative. You don't have to stick with Times New Roman or Arial, but don't pick something that's over the top. Keep your design elements classy. What I mean by that is if you are in, let's say, like marketing, or I say marketing is the best example. If you're working toward a graphic design or marketing type of position, your resume might be a little more colorful and visually interesting than someone applying for, say, accounting. And that's just because the norms for resumes are different across different industries. And you want to keep, no matter where you're applying, you want to keep it classy. You don't want there to be an overkill of color or design or anything. But that doesn't mean that it has to be boring and dry. And number 6 there is use active verbs to describe your work, which we already talked about. So poor practices include including your name in huge font. I see this a lot where the name takes up like half an inch or 2 or something like at the top. I guess an inch is okay. But you know what I mean? Like when someone's got size 42 font for the name, and then the resume starts. That's again, it used to be done a lot. It's outdated, so your name should be bigger, but just a little. Visually, everything should seem very balanced. Don't write long narratives about your experience. Don't forget to proof your work. Don't leave half the page blank for your resume. You have to find a way to get it to look full. And there's always a way. I have never encountered a student or client for whom I could not figure out a way to lengthen the resume if that is the challenge that you have. So if you do have that challenge and you want help, just reach out and let me know. Don't omit information because you don't feel like looking it up. I see people do this a lot. Like they just skip the city and state of a place of employment because they don't remember. I guess it doesn't happen all that often, but it's still a good point to have in mind. And don't use inappropriately casual language. We already talked about that. These are formal documents. And then number 7, don't copy from web templates. Like do your own writing so things sound at least a little bit authentic. Okay, so for cover letters, just a couple of tips. Really, it's more so defining what it is so that you can think about it in the right context. A resume is an objective look at your past and what you've done. A cover letter is more personal, so it can actually help the reader get to know you. It absolutely should highlight skills and experiences from your resume, but those that could not be fully explained on your resume. So it's a chance to elaborate and build upon bullet points, not to repeat them. Cover letters should not repeat bullet points from your resume or just basically explain your resume. You want to do something more with the opportunity of a second document. They also demonstrate your writing skills. Research shows time and again that all industries value written and verbal communication skills. So this is not something that is only important if you're a writing major. It's just important across the board. Obviously, you want to provide your contact information in the cover letter. I add this in here as an important point simply because sometimes it's possible, like for the two documents to get separated, right? The cover letter and the resume, even especially if you're applying and you have to upload them as separate documents. And so in the event that the cover letter makes it somewhere and someone likes it and they want to get a hold of you, you want your phone number or your email to be in there. You don't have to have a big fancy heading. Some people do like to use the same heading that they used on their resume on their cover letter, which is fine if that's your preference. Or you can just include your email and or phone number in your closing down at the bottom. Like, thanks for taking the time to read. I really hope to hear from you. Please feel free to reach out, at abc@gmail.com. So either option is fine. You're going to want to have like a professional, polite, and conversational tone. So very friendly, even upbeat, if you will, but definitely keep it respectful. You're writing to a potential boss, so you want to keep that context in mind. You're definitely writing up the ladder, but at the same time, you should also be confident and professional. I'm just going to say it one more time. Do not repeat your resume in your cover letter. That makes it pointless. They don't need a summary of your resume prior to reading your resume. That defeats the purpose. And don't copy cover letter language from a template. AI can help. And I don't know even what the policies are, I guess, about AI, but assuming most of us do use it to help with our writing, not to do it for us. But AI can help generate some good language. If you work with it to share your ideas about the things that you want to convey, it can help you find a nice, way to present that information that you can then personalize, right? That's the way that AI is good to work with, is when we take it back to ourselves and then we personalize it and make it ours again instead of AI's. Okay. So LinkedIn profile, there's 4 main sections. I feel this is a really straightforward assignment, or part of the assignment, I should say. Make sure that your photo is professional. You are the only person in it. There's no pets in it. You're not in a bathing suit, right? It's a professional context. You're going to complete the about section, which is basically a summary of your past. It's interesting. It's kind of like your cover letter, but more generalized. Since you won't be writing for a specific company in your LinkedIn profile, you are kind of doing the same thing, which is letting people know you a little bit, showing off your writing skills, highlighting your strengths. So those are the goals of the About section. But it's a bit different than the cover letter, again, just because it's not targeted to a specific job or person. It's a broader picture. Then your education. In this section, it's more than just adding Purdue and what year you're going to graduate. There should be a little write-up. It could just be 3 to 5 sentences. If you go to my profile, you will see an example of what I'm hoping for, or just to give you an idea of what yours might look like. It doesn't have to be as reflective as mine, but the idea is that you are telling potential employers how being in college, going through getting a degree, how that has informed your perspective on your future career path. And then for your experience, this is maybe the biggest point of confusion sometimes for people. You're not just going to copy your bullet points from your resume and slap those into the experience. You're going to almost do that, but you're going to improve it just a little bit. You can go ahead and take the bullet points, copy them in, but then you're going to take those bullet points and talk them out into sentences. So it becomes not just a second iteration of your resume that's digital, but it gives a little bit more insight. So you can take a concise bullet point, work it out into a sentence, and then add a second sentence of description. Not for all the bullet points, but for some of them. So in doing so, you're building up a little bit deeper look past the bullet points within each experience description in LinkedIn. Okay, let's talk about the elevator pitch, which is the last part of the assignment. So dress professionally. Whatever this means to you, general guidelines apply. You can just simply think of, again, this is general, it's traditional. For men, it's a suit with a tie or a jacket with a tie. For women, it is a blouse or a sweater. You want to look as though you are going to go into an office job in a professional setting. So like pretend you're going to go work in a legal office. However you would dress for that position, that would be how you would dress for your elevator pitch. If you aren't sure about that and you want to ask me, then I can give you more specific guidelines on an individual basis if you would like. Make sure, when I say groom your hair, I just mean you need to look like you did not just wake up. There has to be some effort, again, just like if you were getting ready to go into a professional job setting. I have keep makeup simple, and a lot of people disagree with this, but the truth is you don't want to be distracting. You don't want your makeup or the background or your outfit or anything like that to be distracting from what you are saying, because what you are saying is what you want them to focus on, not your personal flair or your personal style. Speak clearly. This one's obvious. That's really important. Write a script and practice it. Don't wing it. And that's the advice I can just give you after teaching this class for a long time. It's really clear when someone goes into it without preparing, and it doesn't leave the best impression. So when I say write a script, however, I don't mean that you should necessarily memorize it word for word. You should, however, have memorized an organized version of what you're going to say. So you know exactly what your key points are and you know the order you're going to say them in. That's what you work on memorizing. And then you practice delivering it. Maybe you have like a note card with the key points written out, and you just practice delivering it over and over and over again in your own natural words until you get really comfortable with it. And it's just something you can talk about because you know that content's familiar to you because you've practiced it. Make sure that you have a professional background, and that means you're not like in a bedroom or a kitchen space. At worst, the one option, if you just don't have a good one, just blank wall behind you with nothing going on. It doesn't have to be a picture. That is preferable to a messy type of space, or a space where there's going to be people walking by or it's going to be loud. So yeah, at worst, find just a blank wall. At best, maybe you have some type of quiet desk set up that you can film at. And experiment with your camera views and your angles as well. Every semester I get, it seems at least one person where I'm kind of looking up the nose and like they're filming from down below and it's really kind of strange. So just make sure that you are filming in a way that doesn't make it awkward to watch the video. Okay, some key points just to wrap things up. Make sure that you're keeping your elevator pitch pretty short. This says 45 seconds. I've expanded that a lot because I think they're becoming more common, and it's, as long as they're done well, I think they can go up to about 90 seconds. So it's about a minute and a half. That would need to be really good content, right? It would have to be interested the whole time. You've got a lot of good things to say. I'm learning about you. So if you don't have a lot of content, 45 seconds is also okay. Start with your name. You want to introduce yourself, right? So this is just a little mini outline for you. You're going to open up by introducing yourself, and maybe, I'm a senior at Purdue Northwest, graduating in 2024 with a degree in blah, 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 right? So that can be your opening. And then talk about your goals, your aspirations, or things that you can brag about that make you special and stand out from other people. So you don't need to go through your work history. You can bring in things from your work history, much like with your cover letter. You can kind of elaborate on key strengths or things you want to highlight, but you should not just be running through your resume or, again, summarizing your resume. As I noted here, don't repeat your resume. Use your hands when you're speaking. It's really awkward to watch someone sit for a minute and not really move and just look stiff. So be natural, and sometimes that just requires practice. Record yourself again and again until you get comfortable with having your hands within the frame. We talked about dressing professionally and considering your backdrop or your background, and smile. That's really important. Not the whole time. You don't have to be weird about the smiling, but you should definitely smile at the beginning when you are introducing yourself, as well as at the end when you are providing your contact information. And don't forget that, the contact information. And if you are creative, be creative. I will share at least one creative elevator pitch with you guys. It's musical, it's really interesting. And I'm not opposed to taking a look at a creative video. And even if you submit something that I think is not going to work, and I wouldn't recommend that you use it as a professional elevator pitch, that doesn't mean that you can't get a good grade for it. This is a class, and I want you to be able to feel that you can go with a cool creative idea and take a risk. And if it's well executed, then you're going to get a good grade, even if maybe it would not work for real in a professional context. Okay, so the due dates, we have the planning log coming up this Friday, which is the 26th, and then the first chunk of the unit, the cover letter and the resume, those are due on February 3rd. Make sure that you are submitting the job ad, ideally with your planning log, actually, for the job ad. And that's not going to be a link because those expire. It's going to be it's a screenshot, or you can copy paste the content from the job ad onto a document. So all of that February 3rd, and then the second chunk of the unit, which is the profile, LinkedIn profile, and your elevator pitch, those are due a week later on February 11th. That is all. If you have any questions while you're working on these, don't hesitate to ask. And if you think it's something that everybody could benefit from, go ahead and ask on the discussion board. That's it. Have a great week.